All right, thank you. I appreciate that. Well, welcome to our 2024 EFF Awards. Yeah. I'm Nathan Sheard. Many of you know me as Nash. I am the managing director of Advocacy at the Electronic Frontier Foundation, and I am very excited to be here with all of you tonight to celebrate our award recipients. Each of the folks that are here accepting the awards are really remarkable individuals who have made an impactful difference through their dedication, their commitment to empowering users, and to advancing technology as a tool for change. So can we hear for them? Thank you, thank you. And also, I want to thank you all for making me here tonight. We really appreciate you. We really appreciate the support that you've given to EFF over the years. And I also want to, on behalf of EFF, all of the staff at EFF and everyone, thank Dropbox and Electric Capital for sponsoring tonight's event. And if we could give it up one more time for the 30,000 individual members around the world that make EFF's work possible every day. That's right. And if you're joining us online, we are live streaming tonight, so folks that are joining us online, they probably know this already, but you could make sure you tell your friends that you can join and celebrate our winners with us in the Twitch chat at eff.org/livestream. And if for any reason, if live captions, if you appreciate them, they're helpful for you, tonight's event will be live captioned at eff.org/livecaptions. And it's really important to us that we create the best opportunity for everyone to enjoy tonight's event comfortably and safely. And so that's really the reason behind why we've created event expectations and a code of conduct for tonight. And those are going to both be available at eff.org/event expectations. And if you have any questions about those, or if there's a need to, if you have any needs tonight, we do have some folks that are designated as our designated program monitors. Can I ask those folks to stand up right now? Oh, they're in the back. Do you see folks raising their hands? We have Lee Walker, who's our Chief People Officer. We have Kelly Esguerra, so our Chief Financial Officer, and Allison Morris, our Chief Development Officer. So if you have any needs, please. So if you have a question about those expectations or the code of conduct, or if you have a need, please feel free to reach one of them, or really any EFF staff member that's here. If you need help, feel free to reach out to them. We're all happy to help. And for the folks that are joining online, you can either drop a message into the Twitch chat or feel free to email events@eff.org. And so we're here tonight to really celebrate some really innovative and creative ways of using technology to bring people together. But we also know that technology also has the capability to disrupt our ability to connect with one another. So I'm going to ask everyone here to just join me. Whoa, this is a little. So everyone here just join me in taking one small step to kind of mitigate the risk of technology disrupting our ability to connect tonight. So if you could just pull out your device, right? Hold your device in your hand. Now all collectively at the same time, we're gonna make sure they're on silent. Cool, all right, let's hear it for collective action. Awesome, thank you. Thank you, Alexis. Alexis is our timekeeper tonight. She's gonna make sure I don't go over time. Thank you, Alexis. Who also told me that I was wearing an Obama suit, so. Appreciate you, Alexis. One good turn deserves another. So for all the challenges that EFF has worked to address in technology for over the last 34 years, we also know that the web has really an unmatched ability to be able to bring us together, to help us better understand the world that we live in, to help you get in touch with the people that you love. And that is really underscores why it is so important that we continue to fight for internet freedom. And one of the folks that's been a formidable leader in that fight for decades, and whose expertise in internet freedom and the law keeps EFF on mission and really rooted in our core principle of protecting users' freedoms, is our executive director, who I'm super excited to be able to welcome to the stage tonight, Cindy Cohn.
All right. right, good evening. Thank you, Nash. I am Cindy Cohen, I'm proud to say the Executive Director of the amazing Electronic Frontier Foundation. I'm thrilled to be at the awards with you all and joining us both in person and online to honor this year's award winners and to celebrate their accomplishments. This is a night where the whole EFF community can come together to honor those doing incredible work. And looking through this crowd, I can see we have many current and former staff members, board members, advisory board members, interns, and friends from allied organizations. And many, many more are joining us online too. Thanks to you all for choosing to be with us tonight in this beautiful location. You know, year after year, people tell us that one of the best things about coming to the EFF Awards is the opportunity to meet with other people who are as passionate about digital rights as they are. So I hereby give all of you permission to say hello to someone you haven't met yet or that you don't know very well. And, you know, if you need an icebreaker, ask them, you know, which of our many fights is the one that got you off the sidelines and decided that you had to join us and get involved. And for those online, feel free to put that in the chat as well. It's always fun to see how people came to us. EFF does a range of work, and you know, some of us are copy fighters, and some of us really hate surveillance, and you know, some of us are really just up for busting the bad patents. And it's fun to see all the ways in which we come together. By the way, NSA spying for me, I'm just saying. As the reach of the internet grows, our reach continues to grow as well. EFF logged, permit me, this is the part where I brag a bit about the organization. EFF logged 19,715 media mentions in the first 8 months of the year alone. Yeah. Our How to Fix the Internet podcast, which I proudly host with Jason Kelly, won 2 awards this year, and our 5th season had a 21% increase in downloads. And our Effector newsletter now reaches more than 620,000 people, up about 16% from last year. And of course, our legal work continues. We had a great example of how EFF shows up for the community at DEF CON this year. Just days before a security researcher was going to give a talk about a vulnerability he had discovered, he got a cease and desist notice threatening to sue him if he did. Our Coders' Rights team sprang into action. We were able to navigate this scary situation, avoid a lawsuit, and the researcher was actually able to give his talk on the last day of DEF CON. So, security research community, we always have your back. Now, our design team has pulled together some clips from the recent interviews of EFF staff that highlight a bunch of the stuff that we're working on. So, if you would, let's play the sizzle reel.
Also new here at 6, privacy versus public safety. That's the debate.
If you make it easy for law enforcement to access, you make it easier for criminals to access too. That's why I say it's a really bad trade-off.
A lot of these technologies are untested.
Ring cameras.
Part working for you, but also part working for the police department.
Now, license plate readers.
A form of dragnet surveillance.
Especially when you install hundreds of them across a city.
Your personal data.
Who you are, what you're doing, and where you're going.
Personal data is worth a fortune.
People expect it to grow to $400 billion.
It's not great.
A lot of times legislation on technology is a little bit behind where the technology is.
Thankfully, there are tools to help maintain your privacy and security online.
The Electronic Frontier Foundation
is one that is focused on the self-determination of users.
The public's privacy.
For the free flow of information around the world.
Fighting back against types of corporate surveillance.
If you have a Ring doorbell and crime happens in your neighborhood, police used to be able to download the video straight from the app with your permission. Now, if they want this video, they have to take an extra step. Advocates call it
a win for privacy.
Dr. Matthew Gariglia with the Electronic Frontier Foundation believes the change is a result of a years-old push, urging tech companies to limit breaches of privacy and regain the trust of their customers.
From the Electronic Frontier Foundation, thanks so much.
I tell you, I could watch that all day. And of course, Matthew couldn't have said it better. Ring cameras were hardworking for you, but also hardworking for the police department. And in fact, we had one Amazon staffer pull us aside at an event and said, do you guys have some kind of personal vendetta against us? And of course, it's not personal. We just care about people's privacy. But the tenacity of our pressure is noticed in corporate halls and in the halls of justice and in the halls of Congress. So in addition to the Amazon Ring camera victory, let me ring off a couple more. CertBot is now on 4 million servers, maintaining over 31 million websites. We encrypted the web, people. The FCC closed loopholes and restored net neutrality. That's a fight that I'm afraid is not over yet. EFF helped resist an unlawful warrant and a gag order issued to Indy Bay, an independent news organization. And we fought back to ensure that police drone footage was not categorically exempt from Public Records Act, so we can see what the cops are seeing as well. Now, we love a good victory at EFF, and there's still a lot of work to be done. Our team is focused on many things in 2024. A couple of them right now. We're watching the Telegram situation very closely, especially to see if it's a threat to end-to-end encryption. We don't know yet, and we're honest that we don't know yet, unlike a lot of other people who are weighing in online. We continue to shout from the rooftops and in amicus briefs that protest-related arrests are not sufficient to justify dragnet searches of your devices and your digital data. And our privacy-first approach, the idea that privacy protections are a better approach to online harms than censorship, was partially vindicated just a couple weeks ago when the Ninth Circuit threw out the California Age-Appropriate, and didn't throw out, it held that the California Age-Appropriate Design Code Act likely violated the First Amendment. We hate to say we told you so, but we told you so. Now, it can be truly exhausting and scary to feel the weight of the world's problems on our shoulders, but I want to let you in on a secret. We're not alone. You're not alone, and we're not alone. And as a wise friend once said to me, courage is contagious. Tonight, we've gathered to celebrate 3 honorees who have made a difference, and by doing so, help lift us all up. First, 404 Media, who will receive the EFF Award for Fearless Journalism. Next, our friend Carolina Botero, who will win the EFF Award for Fostering Digital Rights in Latin America. And finally, Connecting Humanity, who will win the EFF Award for championing internet access in Gaza. Yeah. Congratulations to each of our honorees. We're all here to let you know that you're not alone either. Now, I have the honor of introducing our special guest this evening, Elizabeth Minkle. Elizabeth is a journalist, an editor, and a consultant who focuses on digital technologies and fan culture. She's the co-host and editor of the long-running Fansplaining podcast, and she co-curates the Rec Center, a weekly newsletter featuring fandom articles, fan art, and fan fiction recommendation. Please welcome Elizabeth Minkle.
Hi, everyone. So first of all, I just want to thank the EFF so much for having me. It is such an honor to be here tonight. I've admired your work for so long, and it's such an honor to share the stage with these honorees, which do such serious work compared to me. I mostly write X-Men fan fiction. I do serious stuff too, but much of my work as a journalist, as a podcaster, as a consultant involves explaining fans and fan culture across different modes and industries. And I think part of why the EFF invited me tonight is to act as a sort of ambassador of sorts from my nation, which is like participatory fan culture land, to yours. Though I suspect, given the general vibe of the EFF, I think some of you are probably citizens of my nation as well. But as I thought about the work the EFF does and how it connects to fans, I started to think about my personal fandom history, which actually follows the history of fandom online from the very start. And I thought about all the ways that the EFF and like-minded technologists helped shape the fandom world in which I grew up in online, a place where people were able to gather and share their fandom enthusiasm and creativity wholly for free, to express things like sexuality and gender without fear of censorship, to argue about whether Mulder and Scully should kiss or not. So, which I haven't seen the X-Files, but I think they actually do kiss eventually. You can correct me on that or not. So I thought I'd give you a sense of that history, even though, again, I think some of you probably know it pretty well. And then I wanted to talk a bit about where online fandom is today, because the work that you've done over the decades has helped us so much, even if indirectly, and I think today fans need the EFF's help more than ever. So I started writing fan fiction before I had access to the internet, which is a pretty common experience for people my age and older. But when I did get online around age 14 or so, it coincided with my first fandom, which was Buffy the Vampire Slayer. This was the late 90s, season 3 of Buffy, to be precise, which is the best season, and I won't argue about that. And it was the era of stripped down, hand-coded websites, linked together in web rings, organized by character or ship. Giles, for example, just to name one character. And it was on one of these sites, via a very distressing story where Giles became a vampire, that I realized fan fiction was a thing that other people did. This was revelatory to me. These fan sites were revelatory. Other people loved things as much as I did, and in the way that I did, and even more miraculously, they were creating all of this stuff, like penning whole novels, entirely for free. But I had no idea that in other fandoms, sites are being threatened or even taken down at the behest of the original rights holders. Paramount famously threatened Star Trek sites in the mid-90s, which was a big turnaround from their permissive attitudes in the analog era, where people were writing Kirk's Box Flash, and selling it under the table at conventions. But the web was unprecedented territory for rights holders and their corporate legal teams. They were seeing fandom, really seeing it for the first time, and especially seeing things like fan fiction, which they didn't understand. And they were, of course, worried about their brands, and platforms always capitulated to them in this era, even when the things that fans were doing were perfectly defensible under copyright law. But my early years in fandom were spent in relative ignorance of all of this stuff. In fic mailing lists on Yahoo groups, I had no idea that stuff was being labeled adult and taken down at the behest of rights holders. When I migrated to Harry Potter, which is where, unfortunately, I spent most of the 2000s, I mean, whatever, it was fine, but it was actually great at times, but I had zero knowledge that people like my future podcast partner, Flourish Clink, were being legally threatened by Warner Brothers. Flourish had, I believe the site was alohamora.net that they had registered, and they were 12 years old, which was bad PR for Warner Brothers. But in that era, everyone put "I do not own these characters" or something like that at the top of their fic, which is, as I'm sure everyone here knows, legally meaningless. Maybe not everyone knows that if you're not a copyright lawyer, but it's not meaningful. But it was somehow a near universal practice at the time. But I don't recall ever hearing the term fair use, and honestly, I don't remember having any thoughts about the legality of fan works at all. I was lurking, and I was grateful for my fellow fans' work, but I wasn't particularly attuned to their conversations about platforms and entertainment corporations. But it wasn't until years later, when I became a journalist, and specifically when I started covering fan culture, that I began to understand the structures undergirding this thing that had been so formative for me. When I met Flourish, who wound up working kind of coincidentally, maybe not coincidentally, explaining fans to people in Hollywood, we started the Fansplaining podcast. And our wide range of guests from industries that touch fans, entertainment, tech, media, the law, all helped me see the forces that have been shaping all of my youthful fan experiences. By way of example, early on we talked about some development in the axe in our case. I don't know if everyone remembers that one from about a decade ago, but Paramount got upset because some Star Trek fans had made a fan film that was a little too professional. And they released this guidance about what you could do with Spock's ears or something. So anyway, I mentioned at the time that I just didn't find copyright particularly compelling. And I speculated that Flourish liked it because they had been threatened by Warner Brothers when they were 12. But within a few years of doing this podcast and reporting on this stuff and researching it, I found myself saying things like, copyright is the most interesting thing about modern fan culture. And even, maybe I should go to law school, which my lawyer friends and my lawyer father said, please, for love of God, do not do that. But the early rights holder litigiousness really started to fade by the mid-2000s for a variety of reasons. Partly because they realized the thousands of deeply enthusiastic people making things for free about your brand is actually pretty positive. And despite ongoing platform woes, transformative fandom has obviously grown massively over the last few decades. Younger people have come of age on a web where fans were dramatically more visible. For many of them, fanishness even pervades their entire perspective on pop culture. But the lovingly hand-coded Buffy websites of my youth feel so distant from the modern social web. Today, a few big platforms shape almost everything fans do. how fandoms grow, what kinds of things fans make and share, the metrics of success within a fandom. Algorithms are widely discussed, and in some corners they're embraced and collectively manipulated. People sell fan works now, especially fan art, despite copyright law not actually changing significantly since the mid-90s. And where fans once held up a fourth wall to keep fan works far from the eyes of rights holders, many fan creators now directly breach that, showing things like fan art directly to the actors to get their approval. And big entertainment brands do approve of fan works, or the right kind anyway, boosting them on social media and sometimes even incorporating them into production. But fan fiction remains a holdout. No one writes, I don't know these characters on top of their fic these days. People haven't really done that for the last 20 years. But somehow, knowledge about fandom's history with copyright has become a sort of folk wisdom. Fic communities talk about fair use all the time. Not always accurately, I actually see it mangled quite frequently, but usually with the general spirit intact, which has left us with a strong, sometimes even rigid, anti-monetization stance, a belief that any money changing hands threatens fan fiction on a whole. I don't think the law is as black and white as fans make it out to be, but I truly love this stance, the gift economy. I love creating stories for my fellow fans for free. I'm not a lurker anymore, by the way, as I said, X-Men fan fiction. Fan fiction today often feels like a tiny holdout in the morass of the growth at all costs modern web, more in tune with the web on which I came of age. No one tells me to turn my fic into a side hustle, and fellow writers don't try to go viral and parlay that into some kind of fandom influencer status. Though I should note some of that has been creeping in recently, and I hate it. So, how does this all connect to the EFF? Well, I look at some of the topics you're tackling right now, surveillance and privacy, the incredibly serious and important work of the honorees, and again, X-Men fan fiction, but I'm not in the business of belittling fandom, and I like to think our creative practices are vitally important to individual fans, but more importantly, to the collective. And I do think fandom creativity is under threat today. It just looks a little different than those early fandom purges. Just like the web on a whole, the last decade has brought a sort of hollowing out of fandom online. The scale may be massive compared to those early days, but the space for creativity and the ability to communicate feels increasingly diminished as platforms put the squeeze on users in an endless quest for scale. Restrictive content policies, particularly around adult and relatedly, of course, queer and trans content, actively chase fan creators off some platforms. A lack of moderation on others means fans face harassment with little recourse, leading many to eschew the open web entirely and go on closed spaces like Discord. And with the great IPification of Hollywood, we've seen huge corporations' stranglehold on copyright grow ever stronger in recent years. And I've watched troubling numbers of fans embrace this, actively cheering when entertainment corporations buy their favorite character. Automated moderation tools like those on YouTube and TikTok mean fan creators in some spaces are always at risk of the abrupt takedown when rights holders sweep through. And proposed age-restrictive legislation could mean that today's teenagers and the generations that follow might not even get a chance to be part of online fandom at all. The EFF's fight for open creativity online has been helping fandom for longer than I've had an internet connection. Your values align with what I think of as the true spirit of transformative fandom, free and open creativity and a strong pushback against those copyright strangleholds and the homogenization of the web. You know the actual definition of fair use, and you can help fan creators truly understand that their work has just as much right to exist as any creative endeavor. If I was a teen coming into online fandom today, I can't imagine I would live in blissful ignorance of the platforms and right holders like teenage me. I mean, I would probably watch 50 TikToks explaining fair use. But I think it would be harder to find the kind of unfettered creativity that I encountered back then, and that's a loss for the web on a whole. So I just want to thank the EFF for all the work you've done for us over the past few decades and for the work you'll do for us in the next few decades. And if anyone here needs a fan fiction recommendation, just let me know. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Your light and energy reminds us of kind of like the glow that brought us to the web to begin with. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I want to pick up on something that Elizabeth shared. I can't tell you how many times I've told my cousins, like, there's no meaningful reason for you to write that you don't own the rights to this music, right? Like, they don't listen to me. Maybe if I say it over Twitch, they'll listen. Like, Tyree, no one is confused about whether or not you own Whitney Houston's So Emotional. It's not necessary. Thanks. So to present tonight's first award, I'd like to introduce EFF's Director of Investigations, Dave Moss. Dave's expertise covers privacy invasive policing, government transparency, and border surveillance. In addition to spearheading, Dave also leads EFF's work on the Atlas of Surveillance project in partnership with the Reynolds School of Journalism at the University of Nevada, Reno. And Dave's, before joining EFF, was a well-respected, and I think by some San Diego government officials, feared investigative journalist. So I'd like to introduce Dave Maass.
Thanks, Nash. Good evening, everyone. Freedom of the press is one of EFF's most cherished values. We fought for the right of news organizations to access court records. We've stood up for journalists accused of computer crimes. We've written digital security guides for reporters, and we even train young journalism students on how to investigate technology. I said goodbye to one of my closest colleagues, Trevor Timm, when he joined with John Perry Barlow and other EFFers to found the Freedom of the Press Foundation. In fact, I'd say that journalism is in EFF's DNA. More than 10% of our staff has a background in journalism. I know this statistic because that's how many staffers are part of an internal message board called EFF X Journos. Sadly, most of what happens in that channel is sharing sorrow over massive layoffs at news organizations. But last year, there was a rare moment of joy when it was announced that some of our favorite investigative journalists at Vice Motherboard, Joseph Cox, Sam Cole, Emmanuel Mayberg, and Jason Kebler, were striking out on their own to form 404 Media, an independent news site that would allow them to continue their fearless reporting on tech abuses without the meddling of corporate vultures. I have never smashed a subscribe button so fast. Now, at EFF, we spend a lot of time talking to journalists. We rely on the news media to make sure the injustices we fight against are exposed to a wider world. But just as often, we find out about these injustices from the hardworking investigative reporters who unearth these stories. When you get a message from 404 Media, you open it immediately because you just know they've uncovered something explosively scandalous or ridiculously absurd, or often both. I went through my archived emails this week and found the first time that 404 co-founder Jason Kebler reached out to me. It was in February 2014, and Jason was covering tech for Politico. And he was digging into a scandal in which a Mexican spyware seller and a web startup founder had funneled illegally money into a San Diego election. 10 years later, the team has been involved in unearthing so many big scoops on issues related to hacking, cybersecurity, cybercrime, artificial intelligence, consumer rights, and law enforcement surveillance. When the surveillance vendor Flock Safety recently promoted an academic study with the outlandish claim that their automated license plate readers were involved in solving 10% of crimes nationwide, a lot of news outlets promoted it unquestioned. 404 Media instead dug deep and uncovered records showing that it was little more than a marketing document. They poked so many holes in it, you could use it to strain spaghetti. Tech reporting isn't easy, and it requires people who understand tech, care about it deeply, but would rather make enemies in tech than join the lucrative industry. There are a lot of excellent investigative tech reporters out there. There's Dhruv Mehrotra at Wired, Thomas Brewster at Forbes, Kashmir Hill at the New York Times, among them. But 404 Media stands out because not only does their team have such an exemplary track record, but because they also have shown the courage and personal sacrifice to fight for their editorial independence in cyberspace by forming their own scrappy media company. EFF in the world is better because 404 Media exists, and I am proud to bestow upon them the EFF Award for Fearless Journalism. Regretfully, the 404 Media team was not able to make it today at the last minute, so I will temporarily accept this on their behalf. But luckily, 404 Media editor Jason Kebler has sent in a video to make up for their unexpected absence. So let's give them a round of applause while we cue up the tape.
Hey, EFF Awards, I'm Jason Kebler. I am a co-founder of 404 Media. I'm sick with COVID, so I'm very sorry that I have to give you this speech from my garage and not be there with all of you today. I wanted to first congratulate Connecting Humanity, who's doing such important work in impossible circumstances, and Carolina Botero for her digital rights work with Fundación Carisma. We're humbled to be honored alongside of you. A little over a year ago, my colleagues Sam Cole, Emmanuel Mayberg, Joseph Cox, and I started 404 Media. We had the idea that a small team of journalists can do impactful work without a big corporate infrastructure. We figured that we're journalists, we know what we're doing, and we can hopefully figure out the business. When we launched, here's what we wrote. We hope our stories will take over the internet, impact public policy, and expose bad actors. We'll point out the absurd. We'll be irreverent and have fun. We'll also do very serious work. We hope that you will read these stories and want to send them to your group chat or bring them up as conversation starters at parties. Since then, we've exposed flaws that allowed people to be tracked on the New York City subway, a flaw that has now been fixed because of our reporting. We've gotten apps that facilitate the creation of non-consensual sexual AI imagery banned from the App Store, and we've exposed surreptitious mass data scraping by some of the most valuable companies in the world for the training of their AI. That reporting has led directly to lawsuits. And somehow, along the way, after much bashing my head against the wall, I figured out who has been making those bizarre AI shrimp Jesus images that keep going viral on Facebook. We've only been able to do this because our readers have shown that they want this type of work to exist in this world. And they've shown that they're willing to financially support it. We believe that there is a huge demand for journalism that is written by humans for other humans, and that real people do not want to read AI-generated news stories that are written for search engine optimization algorithms and social media algorithms and then jam down our throats. And we believe that media companies should succeed because they're doing good work, not because they have a cool office or are propped up by venture capitalists. We're thankful to be one of a handful of journalist-owned independent companies that have shown there's another way to do this, that are succeeding and that are doing important, fun work for other people. And we're really thankful that the EFF believes this work is important. I became a tech journalist a long time ago, mostly on accident, and at the time, I didn't know anything about anything. I got really lucky and I stumbled upon the EFF very early in my career. And at the beginning, I called them about domestic drone surveillance, then I called them about Section 230, then I called them about right to repair and copyright law and stalkerware and FOIA and on and on and on and on. In all of those conversations with so many incredible staffers, I've somehow learned a thing or two, and I'm so thankful for it. I don't have enough time to name all the people that we've spoken to at the EFF, but you do such incredible work, and thank you so much for the work that you do. I know that Sam, Emmanuel, and Joseph feel the same. Thank you so much.
Has anyone ever written fan fiction about a garage? I've never had so much garage envy before. That's right. Thank you. I knew someone would. Thank you, Elizabeth. Democracy depends on incisive, independent journalism, and there's so much gratitude to 404 Media for the work that they've done. So our next award will be presented by our Director of International Freedom of Expression, Jillian York. Jillian is the author of Silicon Values, The Future of Free Speech Under Surveillance Capitalism. And Jillian, among many other bylines, has written for Motherboard, MIT Technology Review, and Wired. With EFF, Jillian leads work on fighting state and corporate censorship and its impact on culture and human rights, particularly in traditionally marginalized communities. Please welcome Jillian York.
Good evening. So, as I'm sure pretty much everyone in this room knows, EFF's mission is to ensure that technology supports freedom, justice, and innovation for all people of the world. That mission has led us to many corners of this big earth and covers a range of issues, whether we're talking about fighting against major global treaties or working with allies on the ground to oppose speech-restricting legislation or conducting research on border surveillance and many other topics. But in times of conflict, our mission becomes even more critical. The internet is an essential service. It enables people to build and create community, to acquire vital knowledge, and to shed light on injustice. People in crisis zones rely upon the free flow of information to survive, and restoring internet access in places where other communications infrastructure has been destroyed helps with the dissemination of life-saving information, distribution of humanitarian aid, enables continued educational and cultural contact, and ensures, most of all, that people's stories can be shared with the rest of the world. That's why I'm really proud tonight to be presenting an EFF Award to Connecting Humanity, a nonprofit organization based mostly in Cairo in Egypt that helps Palestinians in Gaza by providing them with eSIMs that enable them to access the internet despite Israel's communications blockade. EFF has been working alongside many allies across the Middle East and North Africa for a number of years, and I personally have seen firsthand on the ground the struggle faced by Palestinians in the West Bank and as well as in Gaza to access the free and open internet, which is under near total control from the Israeli government. That struggle is only worsened amidst the current conflict, as Gaza has been subject to repeated attacks on its infrastructure, resulting in full blackouts. And that's what makes Connecting Humanity's work so important. The organization, led by Egyptian journalist and activist Myrna Halbawi, has provided nearly 400,000 eSIMs to people in Gaza since October. And they're continuing to collect donations of eSIMs and continuing to distribute them to those in need. Myrna's here with us tonight to receive the award on behalf of Connecting Humanity, and we'll congratulate her up to the stage in just a minute, but before I welcome her, let's watch a short video about their work.
علاج أولي لاطمئنان جميع الناس اللي شغالة
I want to donate an eSIM to Gaza. في الوقت اللي كان قطاع غزة كله بيعاني من انقطاع في الاتصالات وفي الإنترنت لأيام طويلة تمتد ل10 أيام متواصلة بفضل eSIMs من Connecting Humanity وغازا Connecting Team قدرنا نتواصل مع جميع الفرق الطبية العاملة من أقصى الشمال إلى أقصى الجنوب في مستشفيات العودة في جباليا وفي النصيرات ومراكزنا في رفح وجباليا. قدرنا نطمن على بعض، قدرنا نوصل بعض ببعض ونطمن أهالي المرضى عنهم.
أنا مش هقدر أشبكها اليوم، مش هقدر أشبكها اليوم.
الشرايح الإلكترونية طبعا هي بتساعدنا نقدر نتواصل، نعرف حالنا للناس، نعرف شو الأخبار، نعرف الناس أخبار.
جد لولا الله سبحانه وتعالى ثم الشرائح الإلكترونية كان ما عنديش نت ولا أقدر أتواصل مع العالم الخارجي ولا أقدر أمتحن الامتحان كمان.
أنا عبد الله من غزة، استخدمت الشريحة الإلكترونية وساعدتني في توصيل مناشدتنا لما انقصف المربع الصخري اللي ساكن فيه.
أنا أحمد من شمال غزة. الشرائح الإلكترونية ساعدتني كتير إني أتواصل مع ابني المصاب في قطر، ومشكورين جدا.
وبعت كمان لقرايبي في المدرسة، وبعت لصحفيين موجودين في المستشفى، يعني كله انبسط. ميت أخيرا.
شكرا لك على الشريحة الإلكترونية.
بحب أشكر أول حاجة فريق العمل كامل على المساعدة اللي انتم قدموها، وبحب أشكر أي شخص في العالم اتبرع أو لسه هيتبرع في أي شريحة إلكترونية. أنتم مش متخيلين حجم المساعدة اللي أنتم بتقدموها. يعني في ناس شغلها أونلاين بتشتغل عن طريق الشرائح اللي أنتم بتقدموها. في ناس أهلها مسافرة برا بتتواصل معاها رايحة تتعالج مثلا، إصابات رايحة تتعالج، فكله بيستخدم الشرايح هذه حتى يتواصل مثلا مع شغله مع قريبه برا. فشكرا كثير من القلب لكم جميعا.
In case you couldn't read that URL, it's gazaesims.com. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Mirna Al-Halbawi to the stage to accept the EFF 2024 EFF Award on behalf of Connecting Humanity. Should I keep holding it? Why? I can also put it back. It's okay. It's okay. Thank you so much. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. It's such an honor to receive this award by EFF, a prestigious foundation. And this award is multiplied for me on a personal level as a woman from the Arab world and a writer who had no technology background. But I know many will see this as an ironic moment, to be standing here in the country who is #1 supporter and partner in committing these war crimes in Gaza. One of them, and there are many, is isolating millions of people and stripping away their right for internet access and telecommunication services. And add to that, intentional targeting the gathering points of journalists and civilians using the eSIMs. But me, being here despite that, is exactly the core of Connecting Humanity. On October 27th, the day before the first blackout of internet and telecommunication services in Gaza, which made me start the Connecting Gaza movement, I shared a desperate yet hopeful video on my Instagram, consisting of all the supportive messages from people around the world for Palestine and Gaza. And I wrote a caption: people are not their governments, because they are not, and we here in this place are not. Connecting Humanity started from the people to the people, because asking today's leaders and governments for our right for a free and untouchable internet access is like asking your kidnapper to give you their phone so you can call the police. Connecting Humanity is this lady sitting on her couch in her safe house in USA, living on paycheck to paycheck, struggling, yet she willingly decided to oppose her government horrifying decisions and donate an eSIM to fellow humans living under the worst circumstances. Some used it to save their family from under the rubble, true story. Others used it to resume their online jobs, to resume their online education, and to connect again all the hospitals in Gaza Strip from the north to the south. And of course, to all the journalists exposing what's happening on ground and the innocent civilians sharing what they are going through. In 11 months, Connecting Humanity has managed to send almost 400,000 donated eSIMs from all around the world to Gaza. Which is equivalent to 10 million US dollars. And we're still connecting people, and we're still asking for eSIM donations every day. Just this morning, we were asking for donations. This is why Connecting Humanity matters, because at the end, humanity will still be there, like a light, at the end of a very scary and dark tunnel called governments. This award is for all the donors from all over the world who took some of their time, effort, and money to donate eSIMs. You have not only saved lives, but you helped writing history the right way by giving Palestinians a voice. Because over the past decades, people in Palestine, Iraq, and Afghanistan had no tools to document and share what's happening to them. This award is for Ahmed al-Madhoun and Hind Khudari, the two brave journalists who were the first two people to use our eSIMs in Gaza Strip. Both are still trapped in Gaza, facing death every day and every minute, along with millions of Palestinians. This award is for Connecting Humanity's small team of volunteers who worked day and night to connect people in Gaza for the past 11 months and still going strong. They are the most selfless people I have ever met. Not a single day has passed without this team doing their best to ensure that people are connecting in Gaza. This award is for all the souls we lost over the past year and the past 76 years. This award is to a free Palestine. Thank you so much, and donate an eSIM to Gaza.
Wow, I have no words. Just thank you for being the fuel for that candle at the end of the tunnel. So I really appreciate it. Jillian, was that GazaESIMs.com? Yeah, GazaESIMs.com. So thank you so much, and congratulations to Connecting Humanity, and really thank you for your work. So our final award will be presented by our Policy Director for Global Privacy, Katitza Rodriguez. And in addition to supervising EFF's work in Latin America, and among the many areas of digital rights knowledge that Katitza really controls, she's an expert in cybersecurity, data privacy, and international human rights law implications. I have to say, CNET was absolutely on point when they named her one of the most influential Latinos in technology in the United States. It is my pleasure. Please join me in welcoming Katitza Rodriguez.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. It's a great honor to introduce EFF Award winner Carolina Botero for fostering digital rights in Latin America. For over a decade, as Executive Director of the Charisma Foundation, Carolina has transformed into a leading voice for free expression, privacy, and social justice. Under her leadership, Charisma makes sure digital technology protects human rights, with an impact felt both locally, regionally, but also sometimes globally. Her work goes beyond advocacy. It's about standing up for people's rights in thoughts and sometimes dangerous contexts like Colombia, where defending human rights takes real courage and risks. In 2001, Carolina played a key role in stopping Leyeras, a law that would have brought in a Digital Millennium Copyright Act notice and takedown regime in Colombia, threatening free expression. Because of her strong opposition to the law, her communications were surveilled by the government. But even under intense pressure from governments, she refused to back down. Instead, it only strengthened her commitment to take on the fight against abusive state surveillance practices, a battle that had shaped so much of the work that Charisma has done in the last decade. Carolina has always been ahead of the curve. She just doesn't fight for digital rights in a vacuum. She always connected to real, everyday life. Her work during the Colombian peace negotiations showed this clearly. She helped human rights NGOs to secure their communications at a time of widespread abusive government surveillance practices. In fact, a recent Court Supreme ruling in Colombia exposed the extent of how illegal surveillance was used to track down activists, human rights defenders, proving just how crucial her work was. Now, reflecting on Charisma's incredible journey, it's worth noting that the organization has grown not just from 3 people into 30 today, in a context that is really hard in Latin America, where funding is almost not something you can get easily. There are no memberships. And now they're covering a wide range of topics. And it's just in 12 years, and with a pandemic thrown in the mix. But Carolina's impact extends just beyond policy. She has a rare ability to bring a deeply human touch to her work. She listens, she empowers, and she leads with intellect and empathy. Her colleagues describe her as someone who allows others to explore new ideas, take risks, and grow under her guidance. In a space often dominated by men, and especially in Latin America, Carolina stands up as a powerful voice of justice. I had the privilege of witnessing her remarkable work firsthand. She managed to be a mother, a wife, a writer, a leader, and still have time for hobby, yet somehow finds time for everything. With the support of her husband, she navigates the complexities of digital rights across countries and time zones and 5 a.m. call meetings. And then when she needs a moment to recharge, she escapes to the farm in the countryside and winning in the Finnish sauna by the beautiful river. These moments of peace shared with her family are what fuel their relentless energy and commitment to her cause. As Carolina steps into this chapter, having left her position as Charisma, let it known that she just built not just an organization, but have helped build a digital rights movement in the region. A moment for digital rights that is more inclusive, more empowered, and more visible thanks to her leadership. Her legacy is one of courage, vision, and deep commitment to justice. Those of us who have the privilege of working with her know that she has inspired countless of people and others to continue the fight she so passionately led. Please let me show you first a video of Carolina before I welcome you here.
Soy Carolina Botero, colombiana, defensora de derechos humanos en entornos digitales y junto con Connecting Humanities y 404 Media, somos este año los ganadores del premio EFF 2024. En mi caso, por promover derechos digitales en América Latina. Este es un video de agradecimiento que me obliga a hablar de mí misma y eso nunca es fácil. Pero también es como una invitación a mirar al pasado y pensar en todas las personas que me han acompañado durante estos años de trabajo. Comienzo diciendo que recibir un premio a título personal por hacer lo que me ha hecho feliz durante 2 décadas es una gran alegría. Además, recibirlo de la mano de Electronic Frontier Foundation, pionera y referente en este sector, es un honor gigante. Aunque no lo sabía para ese entonces, fui una de las primeras mujeres que, hablando de acceso al conocimiento, entró a este mundo de la promoción de derechos digitales en América Latina. Si bien el camino no ha sido fácil, nunca me sentí sola. Tengo una lista larga de gente, comunidades y organizaciones a las que agradecer. Lo primero que quiero hacer es reconocer el rol que Carisma ha tenido en mi trabajo. Cualquier capacidad que haya tenido para promover derechos digitales en la región ha estado íntimamente ligada con esta organización. En el 2009 entré a ella y en el 2014 asumí su dirección por 1 década. Multiplicar el trabajo en la protección de derechos humanos se ha podido hacer gracias a las constantes articulaciones con personas, grupos y redes de organizaciones pares con las que hemos venido trabajando. Con este video doy las gracias a cada persona con la que trabajé, aprendí y apoyé durante los últimos años. Gracias EFF por este reconocimiento y gracias a ti, Katitza Rodríguez, amiga y consejera, que desde esta organización ha tendido puentes de apoyo y conocimiento. Solo me queda por decir que cualquier logro que yo haya alcanzado no ha sido individual, es producto de conquistas colectivas que suceden por todas partes y que tengo la esperanza de que sigan ocurriendo. Gracias EFF, esto es muy bello.
Please join me. Please join me in welcoming EFF Award winning Carolina Botero, a visionary leader, a tireless defender of human rights, a beacon for the future generation. Thank you, Carolina.
I'm the little one here, so. Buenas noches. It is wonderful and comforting to hear my accomplishment as viewed by Electronic Frontier Foundation. Of course, it goes without saying that these are clearly not individual achievements. Again, let me tell you that for every public win, there have been as many failures and a good number of silent successes, many of which I can't even talk about. Many people don't know that something Charisma has done in recent years is to work under the radar, to raise awareness in the Colombian government about digital rights. For example, we've worked hard so that the reporting of digital security vulnerabilities is not received by the government as a threat to national security or as a punishable and grave crime. Little by little, we have helped build capacity and trust in a country in which, in addition to the usual tensions surrounding these issues, complexity increases manifold because of decades of armed conflict. This kind of work, the kind we do quietly, also made it possible a few years ago to prevent large amounts of data pertaining to victims of that. I'm sorry, but my eyes are very bad and the light here is... So the kind of work we do quietly also made it possible a few years ago to prevent large amounts of data pertaining to victims of that armed conflict, and more recently of millions of users of the national health system from continuing to circulate on the internet. This quiet work also requires building capacity and bridges between multiple stakeholders, government, media, politicians, civil society, companies, the tech community, both of which are key to making progress in the defense and promotion of digital rights. Quiet work is a particularly thankless aspect of our mission in countries like Colombia, where there are few resources and few capacities, and where these issues are not on the public agenda. In other words, we almost always feel like we're swimming upstream. Our efforts have been ignored many times for different reasons. One of them is that external validation remains a requirement for our work defending digital rights to be taken seriously. An award like the one EFF is giving me today is particularly valuable to me, and by extension to organizations such as Charisma. We work in contexts where these issues need more attention and need to involve more people. This recognition helps bring visibility to our work, and as a welcome collateral effect, they strengthen the quiet part that is less obvious. It takes a village to raise a child, they say in Africa. Well, it takes a community to rise up to the challenge posed by the roller coasters of technologies, change that just won't stop. Our efforts to promote and defend rights in the digital environment have to be collective. Only then we can be forward-looking in the midst of great uncertainty. Since my work, and therefore this recognition, have been possible thanks to a collective effort, it is also important to say thank you. Please be patient as I gratefully acknowledge my village. Thanks to Charisma, the foundation that I joined in 2009, began leading in 2014, and which is currently moving forward under another leadership. Thanks to those who sit in the Charisma board, those who participate in the assembly, to the current co-directors, and to each and every person who has worked with us over the years. Since it's impossible to list all the people and organizations to whom I owe so much, perhaps it is better to talk about groups: the Creative Commons folks, the free software and free culture communities, hackers, open source, open science, freedom of expression, privacy, access to knowledge, and the right to research communities. All of them have at different times welcomed me, and they have been sites for ongoing learning and thinking about digital rights, and also spaces to imagine digital activism, as well as build trust and strategies. Special thanks to those who have led and currently lead peer organizations in Latin America and Colombia, as it is in the fellowship of our conversations that I have found the calmness to push ahead. Thanks to the funding agencies who help, because it's very hard, as Katitza says, and to many people from the public and private sectors who have challenged me and with whom we have learned to collaborate. Thanks to my close circle of friends who listen to fear of leaving someone out, I will only mention Pilar. Thank you. I cannot get off the stage without thanking my family,
My father's curiosity introduced me to the importance of tech and guided me. I am grateful for my mom's and my daughters, Laia and Ilona, generosity, for the constant support of my sisters and that of wonderful extended family that have always been present and attentive. Fun fact, Charisma was born as a family endeavor for education, in which members of the Botero Cabrera family left their mark and have been a source of silent but permanent support. Of course, thanks to Julio, my husband, not only because together we learned to share household burdens, but also because his companionship encouraged me to step outside of the individualistic categories of private law to think about the public interest and public and constitutional law. Thank you, EFF. I am truly honored to receive an award from an organization that pioneered the defense of human rights in the digital environment and remains a key reference point. This journey has not always been easy, but one thing I am sure is I have never felt alone. Thank you for the recognition which I receive along with 404 Media and Connecting Humanity. I cannot leave this stage also without saying that Myrna just reminded me that best activist initiatives and organizations are born from rage. We as activists have use that feeling to do stuff, to achieve change. She reminded me that I used the rage from being called terrorist for stepping against a bad intermediary draft law, yes, copyright, to do change. Of course, thank you again to Katitza, to Babette, and to Veridiana for putting up my name. And muchas gracias a todos ustedes por estar aquí esta noche. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carolina. A lot of some folks here might know, before joining EFF, I spent a lot of years as a frontline organizer and then supporting frontline organizers in a fight for social justice. And I often would hear, not often, but enough, that digital rights was a privilege when you needed to fight for all of the other things that we need to fight for. But the work that Carolina's done with Charisma Foundation and beyond really have shown us that there is less and less light between the fight for digital rights and the fight for human rights, right? More and more every day, the fight for digital rights is a human rights fight. And so thank you so much for really spearheading that. Appreciate it. Can we get a hand for all of our award recipients tonight? Carolina Botero, Connecting Humanity, 404 Media. Just thank you so much for sharing your work with us, for sharing your work with the world. We are so grateful. The digital rights community is really vast, and supporting it, there's a role that all of us can play in supporting it and creating better futures for ourselves and for technology and for humanity. Whether you're an activist or a coder, an artist, anyone, you can support the fight for online freedom in your community, in your family, in your world. So it's really thinking about how can you do that today. And I know a lot of folks in this room are also members of EFF, but EFF is also another way you can support the fight for online rights. So if you're not an EFF member, you can join EFF at EFF.org/celebrate. Or if you're in the room tonight, you can go see Christian in the back of the room. Christian's got his hand up in the air. So thank you. Thank you for all of the 30,000 members around the country and for all the folks around the world and all the people that are in here tonight for supporting our work. We are grateful. I also want to say thank you again to Dropbox and Electric Capital for sponsoring tonight's event. We are grateful for their work as well and for the support that all of you have given us to be able to continue this work. I want to recognize our organizational members like No Starch Press and Filecoin Foundation who join us in a pledge to help create a future in which technology supports freedom, justice, and innovation for people around the world. Thank you. And so for everyone in the room tonight, please stick around. get to raise a glass with our award recipients, and also get to know each other. Everyone's in the room tonight because we care about digital rights, we care about supporting online freedom, and we care about connecting humanity. So let's take advantage of that time we have together tonight, right? Cool. Awesome. Thank you. And for the folks that joined us online, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for spending this time with us. And to everyone, have a wonderful evening. Thank you.